Why argue? Hello, all you beautiful souls out there in my social media family. My name is Chris, and I'm here to help you find your happiness. In today's video, I'm going to be posing the question, why argue? Now, what brought this topic about for me this evening was that I was laying in my bed, and outside of the window, so I was listening to some very chill music, and outside the window, I could hear this couple arguing. And the whole time that they're arguing, I could tell through the tone of their voice and the things that they were saying, is that it was escalating more and more and more. And it finally got to the point where they were saying some really nasty things to each other, and yelling, both of them yelling at the top of their lungs. Now, one of the things that really threw me off about this, as I'm laying there, I'm thinking to myself, why does this voice sound so familiar, right? And even though it sounded familiar, it almost didn't. And I finally got to the point where I had to get up to the window because I was going to ask them to stop yelling right outside my window because it was starting to get really annoying. And when I pulled up the blinds to see who it was, I could not believe it. It was two of my friends that I've known for quite some time, right? This husband and wife. And it blew me out of the water because I had never heard either one of them speak to each other in the manner in which they were, let alone the tone in which they were. And it really tripped me out. So I put on my jacket and I walked downstairs and I went outside and I tapped my friend on the shoulder and I said, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And as soon as he turned around, it kind of was like that pattern interrupt. He kind of like snapped out of it and he was like, "Oh, we're just going through it." And I said, "Yeah, I could tell," right? And I said, "What's got you both so heated up that you're actually talking to yourself like this? I've never heard you guys talk to each other like this." And one thing, they started to tell me what was going on, and it was basically, that they were not communicating properly, their expectations to one another, but more so than not properly communicating their expectations, it was the fact that it got to this competition where each of them had to be right in their opinion, in the way they felt that the things that what the other person was doing wrong. And the entire conversation, just to kind of give you the gist of it, was no, you're wrong. And with my friend telling his wife that, and his wife saying no, you're wrong. And it was just this back and forth of each one of them trying to prove their point. And nothing was changing. It was actually just getting only worse and worse and worse. So the conversation that I had with them, and one of the things that I was trying to explain to them, is the first thing that we have to do when we get into that frustration, into that anger, okay, is for us to realize that the person sitting across from us is somebody that we love very, very deeply. Mostly if you're married. I mean, there's a lot of love there. And even if you're just a boyfriend and girlfriend, or even just with a friend, right? We have a lot of love for that person that's right in front of us. So first of all, why yell at them? Right? That's one of the biggest things for me is whenever I go to try to communicate with them, and this is what I explain to them, is ask yourself the question, is what I'm about to say to this person, and the way that I'm going to say it to them, would I be receptive if they were talking to me, in that manner, right? So one of the most important things that I recommended to them, and this is something that my ex-wife and I used to do, because the first 6 years of our relationship were absolutely incredible. We never argued once, right? And what ended up happening is with the two of us is we really had a lot of respect for each other, okay? So obviously if you love someone, you're gonna respect them. So when it would got to a point where she would be getting frustrated and she would realize that she was about to say something that she didn't mean, she would look at me and say, "Hey, I need a minute. Please give me a minute." And I respected her enough to do that. I wouldn't continue to try to badger and get the answers that I wanted, or to try to get my point across, right? And it got to the point where I would do the same thing. Now, the next level beyond that is having enough respect for the person that's across from you when they tell you to take a minute, right? And because sometimes we get so heated up and we get to this point where we're actually not recognizing that we're starting to say things that we don't really mean. So it's very important for us to realize that when the person that loves us is saying, "Hey, why don't you take a minute," that we actually do that. And that was one of the things that I really loved about the relationship that I had with her in the beginning, is that both of us had that mutual respect for each other, that regardless of whether it was that person asking for me to give them a minute, right, or that person telling me to take a minute, I respected that and I took that time, right? Now, sometimes, okay, it did take longer than a minute, but a majority of the times, right, you will notice that it only takes 60 seconds to step away from that conversation and not have that person in front of you that's driving that frustration or driving that anger, so that you can actually take a few deep breaths, gather your thoughts, and then approach that person in a manner which you know it will be received properly. Now, sometimes I understand that there are situations where the frustration arrives from, even though that we are communicating something in a tone that is receptive, in a manner in which we feel that we would be receptive to, that it's still not being received properly. In those situations, we have to understand that other people learn differently than what we do. And in those instances, we have to try to figure out how to change the wording of what we're saying in a manner in which they will receive those words properly. So that was one of the things that I had to do, with other people, right? It would really frustrate me that I'm like, why aren't you not getting this? I'm using simple English. I'm not yelling at you. I'm not, putting you down. I'm not belittling you. What is it that you're not getting? And what I realized is that that person learned in a different manner than what I did growing up. Not only that, but for me, being a very empathic person, I can feel what other people are feeling when they're speaking to me. So if they're speaking to me in a healthy way, it's very simple for me to understand what they're truly feeling and what they're trying to get across. Now, not everybody is empathic, so not everybody is going to be able to feel what you're saying and actually, truly empathize with you. Now, most of us do have some level of empathy, where if somebody's across from us and they're starting to cry, we don't want to see that, so we really start to pay attention. However, one of the things that I really want to emphasize in this video is that it should never have to get to that point. And the way that it doesn't ever get to that point is when we properly communicate in a healthy manner. Now, sometimes arguments are going to happen. Okay, it's just a matter of fact. Okay, that's life. It happens. All right, we get frustrated, we get angry, and we start to raise our voice. In those situations, I really want you to understand that we cannot start to belittle someone or start to put them down or call them names. Right? None of us are ever receptive to that. Okay, I know I'm not, and it's a pretty safe assumption to say that you aren't either. So there is a healthy way to argue, okay? Because like I said, I understand that sometimes it's going to get heated because we're very passionate. I don't know if passionate is the word, but we're very frustrated and very angry, and we're very determined to get our point across to that other person so that they understand where we're coming from. In those situations, we need to understand that you can't be hitting below the belt, so to speak, right? We can't be punching someone in the gut with our words. We can't be saying things that are belittling or putting that person down. All right? So another thing, and this is something that I learned from my ex-wife as well, which was probably one of the most phenomenal things that I've ever learned in communication. And so if you have children, this is going to work amazing with your children. Okay, this is gonna be one of the most phenomenal things that you can ever do. One of the things that she taught me is that when we are yelling at a child, they're only going to retain 20% of what we are saying in that moment. However, if we're whispering at the child, they're going to retain 80% of what we are saying to them. And so that was one of the things that she would do with the kids, and it's something that I started doing with our kids as well. And I could not believe how completely that was the complete game changer. Like, that was the one thing that completely switched the way that our kids learned from us, right? And so that is one of the things that I want you to understand as well, when we are talking with another person, the more that we're able to be in a calm tone and use a lower tone of voice, right? They're going to be more attentive. Because what happens when we whisper? When we whisper, someone has to kind of lean in more to hear what you're saying and to be able to hear it, right? So therefore, as they're having to lean in more, they're actually having to listen more attentively. Therefore, they're going to be retaining what you're saying a lot more. Because obviously, I mean, I know I've been in some arguments, and I'm sure you've been there too, where you're just kind of like, yeah, 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 whatever, 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 right? Just stop yelling at me. And you're not really paying any attention to what they're saying whatsoever. So remember, proper communication is the key to prevent from things escalating, okay? Communicating in the right manner, in the right tone, and in a healthy way is the key to prevent arguments. All right, everybody, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. And please share this with somebody who you think might benefit from it, because we never know when the right words from the right person will hit somebody at the right time and help them find their happiness. Also, please join me on my Vibe Tribe group page. The link will be in the description below. That's a very safe place for you to share your feelings, your thoughts, and even a happy place to share all the happy, good things that are going on in your life. All right? It's an awesome group of people over there. They're all very, very helpful if you have situations where you need some guidance or some advice. Also, if you want to help with your specific situation, you can reach out to me there on Facebook with a private message, and I'd be more than happy to schedule a phone call with you to help you with your specific concerns. And other than that, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Y'all have a phenomenal day. I love you all. Namaste.